It's time to lock in. We're talking SEC, college football, and more. This is AP as we see it.
I'm all about that action. I'm all about that action. I'm all about that action. I said I'm all about
I'm
that
AP Stedham from LA, Lower Alabama. This is AP As We See It, a syndicated weekly 1-hour show discussing the Southeastern Conference, always keeping an eye on the national college football scene and other sports. Welcome to AP As We See It for another edition. We have some special guests this week. Zach Barnett of Football Scoop. He's a national writer. Zach has an excellent perspective on college football and college athletics particularly. But we want to tell you about our social media platforms. We're on our YouTube channel, which is AP As We See It, and also at AP Stedham. And that has all the videos and interviews that I do when I'm at these various events, the college football games throughout the season, the Final Four, the NFL draft, the Super Bowl, the Rose Bowl, the Cotton Bowl, the championship game, Las Vegas Bowl, all these various events that I attend, Senior Bowl Hall of Fame, Mobile Sports Hall of Fame. We're at a special event this week in Montgomery, Alabama, the Jimmy Rain charity golf event. He started off giving one scholarship. It's now up to 70 scholarships. We'll have a lot of interviews from that event in Montgomery, Alabama. We're here at the hotel right now taping our show. So watch for those interviews on our YouTube channel. I was at the Saints practice last week, so we spoke to some of those players, some with the SEC roots. The Texas offensive lineman, Kelvin Banks Jr., he's the number 1 draft choice for the New Orleans Saints. So watch for all those videos and interviews on our social media YouTube channel, AP As We See It, and at AP Stedham. And then also on the Facebook page, the Instagram, and the X account. And also we archive every episode on Spotify. So you can catch every episode that we've ever done on Spotify and the continuing episodes on the YouTube channel. But we'd like to just check out our social media platforms and subscribe if you would. We'd also like to thank our sponsors, Greer's Markets in 29 locations, Alabama, Florida, Mississippi. We always start off the show with Lucy's Recipe. She has the book out. You can buy it at the store or online. They have the groceries to go, delivered to the home, the office, any venue. Remember, it's football, families, and football. And also the basketball is very popular in the SEC, and the baseball and the softball. So you can click on the groceries to go, and they'll make those deliveries to you from all the Greer's locations. You can check the weekly online specials. They also have the coloring contest monthly for the children. You can have the special occasions. You're looking to purchase the essentials for your cooking and all the delicious desserts, and all at reasonable prices for all the holidays, the birthdays, the anniversaries, the fresh produce, all those things you can find at the Greer stores in the 29 locations. And remember, at unbeatable prices, by the way, and remember, Greer's got it. They guarantee it. We'd also like to thank our sponsor, the Cortland Grand Hotel in downtown Atlanta. Spacious rooms. They have the pool that has the really excellent atmosphere and vegetation. You feel like you're in the tropics when you're at that indoor pool. It's right downtown, the heart of Atlanta. Cortland Grand Hotel. They have a tremendous staff with Ben Jackamore and staff, very hospitable. They have the breakfast every morning, delicious. On weekends, I think they cook to order as well. And they have the restaurants there, and the stores are local. And so you're right there in the heart of Atlanta. You could find everything. And it's just a great place to stay. I'll be staying there for the SEC Media Days as well. So we just want to welcome everyone to AP As We See It. And we're going to have our guest here in segments 2 and 3, Zach Barnett. We're discussing the SEC and projection of some of the teams, things happening with players and coaches and around the country nationally as well. Zach Barnett, Football Scoop national writer. So we'd like to remind you of something that's going on in college athletics. It was announced that they're going to have a presidential commission to resolve some of the issues with college athletics. So far, it has Nick Saban named to the commission, That's been reported, and a Texas Tech billionaire. So those are the only two people that have been mentioned to be on this presidential commission. And so I don't know what's going to happen. It's all suspect to me. It's a big splash in the media, but I'm not sure what's going to happen. So let's start off the discussion with the definition of a commission. A commission is a group of people officially charged with a particular function. So this presidential commission is supposed to resolve many of the issues of college athletics. Now, will this presidential commission have the authority? Are these going to be mandates? Is there going to be some type of executive order that the NCAA must adopt? All the membership is going to follow and follow along with all these things that are recommended or mandated or through an executive order? Is this going to become the law of the land? I don't know. I don't think anyone knows at this point. Is there going to be cooperation from the NCAA, cooperation from the membership? That's all suspect at this point. But it's rather interesting that they have decades and decades to figure out this particular program, all these different programs that they have with college athletics, and they have yet to come up with something that will stand up in court. Now, one of the things that I wanted to bring out about this commission is who's going to be represented on this commission. You're going to have the colleges and universities, obviously, I'm sure. They'll be represented on this commission. You'll have the athletic departments, which is part of the colleges and the universities and schools. The coaches, I'm sure they're going to have people on that commission representing the coaches. Then you're going to have the NIL business community. They will be represented. The one key element that I haven't heard discussed, and I hope they're represented on this presidential commission, is the student athletes, because they're the ones that are most affected. They're the ones that are most affected by their experiences at these colleges and universities and schools across the country. So will they be represented on this presidential commission? I don't know, but I'd sure like to see their voices heard. I know that they're only there for a short time, but I think if you talk to these current athletes, they have some good ideas, and I'm hoping they're going to be represented on the presidential commission. And now, like I said, if this is going to be mandated, adopted by the NCAA, what's the nature of their decisions? I just don't know right now, and I don't think anybody's reporting that at this moment. It makes for a good national headline that you're going to try to resolve this, even though they've had decades and decades to figure out these issues. And the thing about the NCAA, and when I say the NCAA, believe me, I'm speaking about the membership, because they're the one who vote on these rules and legislate all these guidelines and rules for student athletes. It's amazing to me. They make a major change, and immediately the coaches, athletic directors are complaining. And I'm thinking to myself, where are all these people with these loud voices during the process of enacting and drafting legislation? Where are they? Where are they in January? And then the rules effective in July or December or whatever the date is. But where are they when all this is being said and done? And I don't think it just shows up on the doorstep. I mean, it has to be drafted. It has to be authored. There has to be some consideration for all these different scenarios. But it seems to me that the NCAA membership, the communication seems to be missing, because you get these loud voices complaining and vociferously, and they're in total disagreement of the legislation that had just been passed and enacted, the transfer rule, the NIL situation. It's just amazing to me that you could have all these people with modern communication where it can be emailed or sent via text, a number of ways, so that it's instantaneous, that everyone understands where the legislation is moving and who's authoring the legislation and what are some of the main points of emphasis that you're trying to gather as much support from all the members of the NCAA. But it seems like it's in a vacuum. Somebody makes the rule, and right away in December, with football coaches primarily, some basketball as well, but they're objecting to these are major changes that are happening, and it looks like they're not even advised, or somebody's not relaying the information to them that the legislation is moving in that direction. So I don't quite understand it, and it always amazed me and baffled me how the NCAA, and people always discuss the NCAA. The NCAA is the membership schools. They're the ones who make the rules. Okay. There's not just somebody in Indianapolis just waving a magic wand. There's consultation and discussion when they make all these things happen. But anyway, we're going to come back after these messages. We have a very special guest, Zach Barnett from Football Scoop. He's a national writer, and he's going to give us his thoughts and projections for the 2025 season. So we're going to be right back after these messages with AP as we see it.
Hi, I'm AP Stedham for Greer's Markets. If you're planning a big party or for every day, shop at Greer's for delicious food, beverages, and snacks. Save time and money by checking on Greer's.com and use groceries to go to get your Greer's groceries delivered. Look at the weekly ad for more information. 29 locations in Alabama, Florida, and Mississippi, serving the region since 1916. Remember, Greer's got it. They guarantee it.
And we're back with AP as we see it, and our very, very special guest, Zach Barnett, Football Scoop, national writer. Welcome to AP as we see it. Zach, how are you today?
Doing well, AP. Good to see you. Good to be here.
Down in the Big D, Dallas, Texas, all the scoop down there. Some people think of ice cream cones. I'm thinking of Zach when he gives that information to everybody.
I sometimes I prefer ice cream cones over myself anyway. So I don't blame you if that's the first place you go.
But Zach, it's going to be an interesting season. The SEC, they're playing the same conference schedule for 2 years in a row. But I was wondering, from your standpoint, what might be an intriguing story with an SEC team this year? Maybe one or two teams you're saying, yeah, they caught my attention. I really want to watch this team in 2025.
I mean, I think you got to start with Arch Mania. Arch Madness is fine. After 2 years of him being on campus, he's going to take the reins at Texas. Obviously, I don't have to repeat his pedigree, but I will go ahead. Obviously, his third SEC campus within the conference of Archie and Eli at Ole Miss, Peyton at Tennessee, now Arch at Texas. All eyes are going to start there. Obviously, they open Ohio State. It was probably going to be a big noon game week one. And I think what's interesting here is that I think he could be. We could be sitting here in December and saying he's the best quarterback in college football. No disrespect to anyone else. I think he could get there. But I think he's got to be, at minimum, a top three quarterback in the conference for Texas to compete and return to Atlanta for the SEC championship game. Probably going to be worse along the offensive line. Losing four starters. Cole Hudson's probably going to return to center, where he's played a little bit. You get DJ Campbell back at right guard, but everyone else is going to be new. You're probably going to be worse at wide receiver. Hard to imagine you're going to be better after losing Matthew Golden, Isaiah Bond, Silas Bolden. Ryan Wingo needs to take a step up after a promising freshman season. A lot of youth there, and then for the second straight year, you've lost a fourth-round tight end in Gunnar Helm. So they brought in Jack Inders from Cal to take that role over, and then they have a lot of young guys behind them. Not a lot of proven players on the outside. Arch is going to have to be an A to A+ player from the jump for Texas to remain among the national elite.
Yeah, you're going to have to be accurate and anticipate the throws and be an excellent quarterback. It sounds like from the little dip in the talent on the outside and the perimeter, and that's what gives you the fear if you're a defensive coach, who's on that perimeter, who keeps me up at night. So that's interesting from Texas perspective. Zach, thanks for bringing that forward to our audience. Really appreciate it. Any intriguing story from a coach in the SEC?
From a coach, I think it's now or never time for Sam Pittman at Arkansas. Arkansas is not an easy job, but he's been there long enough to take a step forward. It looked like he'd done that in September of 2021 when they hammered Texas in Fayetteville, and then they went to Arlington and beat Texas A&M all within the same month. And that's kind of been proven to be the peak of the Sam Pittman years at Arkansas. So I think they'll probably make a change if he doesn't show improvement. And then I think Brent Venables is in a very interesting spot because coming off of last season, they hired Randall Stevenson, the former AT&T CEO, to kind of a nebulous overseeing role. That what does that really mean? What is he really going to do? And then obviously they've hired Jim Nagy from the Senior Bowl to be their general manager. And both of those guys are going to report to Randall Stevenson. Jim Nagy's not reporting to Brent Venables. And he said that when they're choosing players, whether it be in recruiting or in the portal, they're both going to have a say. This isn't a situation where Jim Nagy goes out and finds the players Brent Venables wants. He said they're going to work in concert. Which to me means they're going to be equal. So one thing that's extremely clear is that if Brent Venables does not succeed, Jim Nagy is still going to be there. Randall Stevenson is still going to be there. Those guys are not tied to him. So those are the two guys that are primarily going to be picking his replacement if Brent Venables does not succeed. Now, he's brought in a new quarterback in John Mateer from Washington State, brought in a new offensive coordinator from Washington State, Ben Arbuckle.
Right.
It's a little bit shades of the 2015 offseason when Bob Stoops was facing trouble after a bad 2014 season. He hired Lincoln Riley and Baker Mayfield. Those guys did not come together. Baker was actually already on campus. But either way, he got a new quarterback, new offensive coordinator, and a new lease on life. And Oklahoma made the playoff 2 of the next 3 years. They made the playoff that season, won the Big 12, and then Bob Stoops retired. If John Mateer is Baker Mayfield, Oklahoma's really good on defense. They could be a playoff team. If he's Jackson Arnold 2.0, Brent Venables is going to be out of a job.
Yeah, that's not very good. Yeah, I'm looking at that Oklahoma team as well, Zach. I think they've got a chance to make a move here, and they have to make a move, as you reported. What about any other players besides Arch in the league? Any other player that you're watching this coming season, 2025 season in the SEC?
I'm really interested in DJ Lagway, Florida quarterback. I think
Florida quarterback, right?
I co-host a radio show here in Dallas, a college football radio show. We had Cooper Patania, the national recruiting analyst for 27 Sports, on for the 2023 signing day. And I asked him if you had to put $5 on any player in the class of 23 to win a Heisman Trophy one day, who would it be? And he said DJ Lagway. The kid has potential to be a Heisman Trophy winner, a number 1 draft pick, and he's got a lot riding on his shoulders because Florida, a lot of people had Billy Napier fired this time last year, looking at the schedule.
Sure did.
Ahead of him. And he navigated that, and now his reward for that is not just, hey, if you win 7-8 games, we're not going to fire you. Congrats, you get another year. It's you need to get to that 9-10 scenario and be competing for a college football playoff berth. And for that to happen, DJ Lagway is going to have to go out and be a potential best player in the sport type season.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, the same schedule, conference.
Yes.
Yeah, that was quite a comeback he made last year, especially beating Ole Miss at the end, knocked him out of the playoffs. That was a big feather for him.
That game. A lot of people thought if Ole Miss had snuck into the playoff, they would have been they wouldn't have just been a team that's in the playoff like in Indiana. Ole Miss, with the talent that they had, they would have been a threat to be an Ohio State team, a lower seeded team that could go out and actually win the national championship. But they didn't make it.
Mm-hmm. No, sure didn't. Zach, anybody nationally? You must have a story or two nationally that you're watching. For me, I'm thinking, is this Penn State's year?
Yeah, it feels like we've had quite a bit of, if not now, win type seasons for James Franklin when he has the right roster cycle, and it's like, all right, now's the time you need to take a step forward and actually beat someone who matters. We were kind of saying that last year, and they didn't really win any of those games that when they were playing like games against Oregon, Ohio State, Notre Dame. They lost all those, but they still made it to the college football playoff semifinals. So they get Oregon in conference play. They get Ohio State in conference play. Sure would be nice to win one of those two. It's unlikely that you're going to get back to the college football playoff semifinals by not having to beat Ohio State, not having to beat Oregon, not playing Michigan, and then in the playoff you beat SMU and Boise State, and voila, you're one win away from a national championship game. That's probably not going to happen again. One team that I'm really looking forward to seeing is Arizona State. Obviously, Cam Skattebo was the headliner there, and most people are probably assuming they're a one-hit wonder. I think Sam Levitt and Jordan Tyson could be as good a quarterback wide receiver tandem as anywhere in college football. Not pound for pound. They're good in the Big 12. They're going to be as good as anyone in my estimation. And I think they could go win that conference again.
Yeah, that was interesting. I think they were picked last, weren't they, Zach? In the Big 12 and made the championship.
No one's going to pick them last this year.
For sure. Yeah. He does a good job out there. Good young coach, Dillingham. Yeah. I had a chance to meet with him, Zach, at the Super Bowl was in Phoenix. We ran into each other, and of course he's within the SEC at Oregon, some places. So he's a good young coach. Any other player? How about a player nationally, Zach, for you? We got about a minute left, Zach, about a minute.
A player nationally. Yeah, I'm gonna pick someone who's not a quarterback. I'm gonna enjoy watching Caleb Downs play safety at Ohio State.
Right, Ohio State. Yeah.
I think he's going to be the best defensive player in the sport. I think he might be the best overall player in the sport this coming season. I'm not going to put any like Heisman hype on him or anything like that because he doesn't touch the ball. We just had a defensive player win the Heisman, so this is going to be his last year as a college football safety, and I'm going to enjoy him doing his things. He's one of those guys that's just been from out of the box. They're like, this is the best player, one of the best players in the country, best player position in this country. He was a top 5 recruit. A lot of fun to watch. He's a guy I'm going to keep an eye on.
Hey, we're visiting with Zach Barnett, Football Scoop national writer. We're going to come back and speak to Zach about some of his projections, maybe in the rankings. That's always a lot of fun, Zach. It just keeps the fans having discussions at the water cooler and other places online. So we're going to come back in a few moments after these messages with AP as we see it. Continue our discussion with Zach Barnett, Football Scoop national writer. We'll be back with AP as we see it.
Hi, I'm AP Stedham for Greer's Markets. If you're planning a big party or for every day, shop at Greer's for delicious food, beverages, and snacks. Save time and money by checking on Greers.com and use groceries to go to get your Greer's groceries delivered. Look at the weekly ad for more information. 29 locations in Alabama, Florida, and Mississippi, serving the region since 1916. Remember, Greer's got it. They guarantee it.
And we're back with AP as we see it, and a very special guest, Zach Barnett, Football Scoop national writer. Zach, it's always fun before the season, preseason, to make some projections and predictions and get everyone excited or mad or happy with you. I don't really pay attention to it because I think it's just the fun part of college football. It makes everything happen during the season. But anyway, I wanted to see what you had for the early top 4 in the SEC and we're using top 4 because that's probably the projected number that the SEC would like to have in the playoffs, even though it's not mandated this year for the automatic qualifiers.
I'm going to be really boring here. The SEC is a league that rewards talent and having the most talent in the entire sport. That's pretty much what it takes to get to Atlanta and seriously contend for this conference championship. Last year, you had Texas A&M that was an 8-4 team that was still a win away from playing in Atlanta had they beaten Texas.
Yes,
I think you have a possibility of that greater now that you have an 8-game schedule, in a 16-team conference. You have just greater variance. But the SEC is not generally a conference that invites Cinderella to the ball, so to speak. So I'll start Texas, Alabama, Georgia. That's extremely boring, but I'll take those 3 over the field. And then for my 4th team, I'll go LSU. Garrett Nussmeier, top 3 quarterback in the conference. I'd love to go South Carolina. Everyone loves Lenore Sellers. He's got some Dylan Stewart, defensive end.
Yes.
He could be a top 10 pick. Nick Harbor, wide receiver, could be a top 10 pick. Some high-end talent at South Carolina, but until I see it, I don't see that them having the depth of roster to compete for an SEC championship.
Right. You want to see them perform more than 1 year before you go on to that high wire and
Yes.
project them for the top 4. I understand completely. Good young quarterback and good defensive end for sure, edge rusher. What about nationally, Zach? Let's say a top 5 right now for you? And I'll add this, Zach. It's very difficult at this juncture because we're seeing players transfer that didn't even arrive yet, or they just arrived in the spring. So it's really hard to make a projection. So I'll give you that as a mulligan.
Yeah, it's interesting because this time last year, in years past, it could always be, well, who won the national championship? It's Alabama or Georgia.
Right, yeah.
And then this coming into last year, it was Ohio State had assembled a super team, and they had national championship or bust written all over them. I was writing multiple times last year about how Urban Meyer and Jim Tressel were saying that they'd never seen a more talented team at Ohio State. So that team had enormous weight and expectations. On top of them, Georgia was coming off of 2 national championships, and they only lost 1 game in 2023. There's no one that's really on the precipice like that moving forward. Ohio State is still incredibly talented, but I don't think anyone would argue the 2025 team is going to be better than the 24 team.
No, there's no way.
They're
I don't think
brand
so.
new at the coordinator spots. They're brand new at quarterback. And they really tried to go out and fill up and buy some players in the portal at defensive tackle, and weren't really able to do that because the supply out there was not commensurate with the demand. So I still think they're a top 5 team, but they're by no means a super team. I think Penn State, you'd have to throw them in there. Texas, Clemson's the other team that's kind of a consensus top 4 team. They're really good at quarterback and Cade Klubnik. I was there in Austin when he single-handedly pretty much kept them in that game. They're really good at receiver. They're good on the defensive line. I think if you have to be good at those at 3 positions, it'd be hard pressed not to choose those in today's college football. You could throw offensive line as there as well. And for my 5th team, I'll throw Oregon in. I'm a believer. I believe Texas could get better at quarterback by replacing Quinn Ewers with Arch Manning. I think Oregon could get better at quarterback by replacing Dylan Gabriel with Dante Moore.
Yeah, that's an interesting pick. Oregon, they have a good coach there, Dan Lanning. I thought Cade Klubnik made dramatic improvement. I mean, that's not only my opinion, most people as well in his production on the field, but I thought that was the difference for them last year, Clemson, the play of Cade Klubnik. Zach, any SEC coaching hires that grabbed your attention?
I already mentioned Ben Arbuckle, so I won't say him. But the other one that I think that immediately jumps to mind is Ryan Grubb at Alabama.
Alabama.
He was Kalen DeBoer's guy. That he was his offensive coordinator at Washington when they were in the title game, and then was set to come with him to Alabama until the Seahawks offer came along. And to jump up a level and not have to move is no one's going to turn that down in coaching. So he stayed with the Seahawks. They promoted Nick Sheridan to offensive coordinator. Didn't quite work out. Jalen Milroe was a square peg in a round hole and then regressed as the season went along. So you're going to have a new quarterback and new coordinator with Ryan Grubb back running things. Because of that, I think Alabama could take a big step forward. Obviously, if they hadn't lost to Oklahoma by 3 touchdowns, they'd probably make the playoff over Indiana. Even if they lost that game by 10 points instead of 21, they might be in the playoff. We all know what happened there. So I think they're not going to be 2023 Washington in terms of having just an NFL-style battery between the quarterback and receiver. But I was just recently watching a clip of Ryan Williams from the Tennessee game, and there were so many routes when he was just wide open that Jalen could not deliver him the football. So if he has someone who's just halfway accurate, he's going to get a lot better. That entire offense is going to get a lot better.
Yeah, I think the dynamic at Alabama of all the quarterback situations around the country is the most fascinating, Zach, because there's 3 candidates. They're touting Ty Simpson as having the most experience in command and grasp of the offense at this specific time. But last year, when Jalen Milroe struggled, and like you said, they had to win that one game against Oklahoma to get in the playoffs, they didn't substitute Ty for Jalen. And I'm thinking the whole season rides on this game, and your coaching staff's depending on you, your team's depending on you, and they never utilized Ty in any critical moments when they had an opportunity. Even in the Tennessee game when he was missing the receivers, right? He threw to Ryan Williams, I think, that game 19 times, I think, something like that. And I thought maybe he'd make a substitution, but he never did that game. So I think the quarterback situation at Alabama, and will Kalen DeBoer have the courage? They're all on. I tell people they're all on scholarship. You gave them a scholarship for a reason. And when the game's tight or the quarterback's not playing well, put the other one in to see what happens for a couple series.
That's a good point. And then you have Ty Simpson, who's kind of the incumbent. And I believe this is his third year on campus, but as you said, hasn't really played any meaningful snaps. You have Austin Mack, who signed with DeBoer at Washington, and is now transferred to Alabama, and is clearly a guy that the coaches believe in. And then you have Keelan Russell from my neck of the woods at Duncanville High School here in Texas.
Right.
He was kind of a mid 4-star guy this time last year, and then did really well on the camp circuit and the showcase circuit. Had an outstanding senior season at Duncanville. Was the Gatorade National Player of the Year, and they ended up winning the state championship. But he had a great senior year and ended up, don't quote me on this, but I believe becoming the number one quarterback in the country, maybe even the number one player in the country.
Right, so, at that time, yeah.
If those guys, you assume that Simpson will get the first crack at it, and then Mack, and then Russell. But if those guys don't produce, you're going to have the fans clamoring for Russell.
I think so.
The first time those other guys give them the opportunity.
I think so. This presidential commission, Zach, we heard very little about it so far. A couple interesting names are going to be leading that group. But if there's one thing that you would like to fix with the presidential commission, what would it be? There's an enormous difficulties in college athletics, specifically football. One thing you'd like to fix? You got about a minute or so.
Oh man, fix college football in a minute. Let's see.
One thing, maybe.
I think if I could change one thing, it would be you get one transfer as an undergraduate. I think
one transfer, right?
Agreement there. It's funny to hear people complain about where are the guardrails, where's the NCAA. That's an obvious point, and it doesn't make you look smart to say they should have acted on this decades ago. Obviously, they should have. But now that we're in this situation, the NCAA put that limit in, and then state attorney generals sued it out of existence, and now here we are. So I don't want to see anything that limits these kids' ability to make money. This is America. This is capitalism. But I'd love to see guys that have to stick to where they are a little bit.
Maybe one transfer. Yeah, that's kind of reasonable, I guess. I don't know if they'd probably challenge that in court too, because it seems that they're winning is with a W every time they in court, the players. But we know that the pendulum has swung, and everybody's very nervous right now about college athletics, specifically college football. But we want to thank Zach Barnett, outstanding guest from Football Scoop, national writer. Zach, thank you so much. We'll check in with you during the season and before, and hope to see you in Atlanta for the SEC Media Days. Thank you so much, Zach Barnett, for being a guest on AP As We See It.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, Zach, and we'll be right back after these messages with AP As We See It.
Hi, I'm AP Stedham for Greer's Markets. If you're planning a big party or for every day, shop at Greer's for delicious food, beverages, and snacks. Save time and money by checking on Greers.com and use Groceries to Go to get your Greer's groceries delivered. Look at the weekly ad for more information. 29 locations in Alabama, Florida, and Mississippi, serving the region since 1916. Remember, Greer's got it. They guarantee it.
We're back with AP As We See It, and we'd like to thank our guest, Zach Barnett from Football Scoop, national writer. Zach always has a good perspective of the SEC and also on the national college football scene. He knows the players inside and out, the coaches, and Football Scoop. It's a great site if you're looking for information about coaches and schedules. And oh, by the way, we're going to mention some schedule things that happened recently. Football schedule, college football schedule, beginning of the season, we have Syracuse, because it's going to be playing Tennessee at Atlanta. That's going to be on that first Saturday, at Labor Day Saturday, August 30th. That's 11 a.m. Central Time, August 30th. So we have Syracuse from the Atlantic Coast Conference playing Tennessee from the SEC. And that's one big game that day for sure. The second game they have listed is the Alabama versus Florida State, also the SEC versus the ACC. That's a 2:30 p.m. Central game. So those are two big ball games to start the season. That's really the second Saturday of the season. That's week 1. Week 0, there's some games on August 23rd and during that week as well. But August 30th really is the start of college football season for everybody, most teams. And then we're going to move on to Thanksgiving, Black Friday. That's Black Friday, Thanksgiving weekend, November 28th, the Egg Bowl, who's been played many times on that day. The Egg Bowl, Ole Miss versus Mississippi State, 11 a.m. Central on that Friday. And then we have Friday evening, Black Friday, Texas A&M versus Texas, 6:30 p.m. Central, November 28th. So those are some SEC games, big games that the TV schedule's already been announced. So just put that on your calendar. I know it's important to a lot of people. That's why we wanted to discuss that. I mean, it's great for the Tennessee fans to head to Atlanta and play in the Dome. And of course, Alabama, Florida State, and Tallahassee. I'm trying to think. On that historic series, they haven't played very often. I know last time they played, I think it was Nick Saban's first game. They played in Jacksonville. It was Nick Saban and Bobby Bowden at that time, 2007 season. I think that's correct. And Florida State won 21-14, if I recall. But I know Tennessee and Syracuse have had some good battles as well. I know that Tennessee won a game up there at Syracuse in their championship season. I think they had some critical interference calls at the end, 2 or 3 in a row, something like that. It was very close with T. Martin and company. Ended up winning the national championship in '98. So that'll be a good ball game. Syracuse, a 10-win team. Tennessee, a college playoff team. So look for a good matchup there in Atlanta, Georgia, Labor Day weekend. But now we're going to just continue with our discussion of that presidential commission, and we have a few things we'd like to bring to light. One thing I always could never figure out is why these conference commissioners and the NCAA, all these athletic departments, they could never get together to propose solutions to the problems and the issues of college athletics. I know that one of the reasons they claim is the courts. They've been losing in the courts, but I'm thinking they have lawyers, high-priced lawyers, and could they not get together to see if they could come up with something to pass the test if it was ever challenged in a court? So all these years, they've known for decades that these problems would be occurring, and these issues are part of college athletics. We've known for 50 years that they've been trying to pay players. The players wanted to get paid, and they're trying to come up with ways. They were against it for so many years. It's an amateurism. That was the claim. They wanted to keep that model, the student athlete amateur model, but the money was too strong, and there was an avalanche and wave of sentiment to make the change, and it finally happened. And here they are with this name, image, and likeness issues that it's from state to state. They try to come up with legislation each state. They repealed quite a bit of it, and they're looking to Washington. Now, let me ask you something. These are to my audience. When have you ever heard the American people rushing to Washington, D.C. to solve an issue? They're running away from it most of the time. And here it is, one of the major sports, a major sport in college football, one of the major sports in America, and they're rushing to Washington, D.C. to have this problem solved. They came up with this presidential commission. No one knows the authority. They don't know the entities that will be represented specifically, but you're running to Washington, D.C. to solve all these critical issues. And there's a number of them: the name, image, and likeness, the transfer portal, the enforcement of college athletics, the Title IX implications if you're providing revenue to the football teams that generate the revenue, the men's basketball teams. You're trying to incorporate this all with the Title IX, and you have the House settlement that's coming up. Everyone's trying to present more money before this July 1st deadline. So there's not a cap on the NIL monies at this time. So they're trying to build rosters before there's a cap of this money. But I just don't understand why the commissioners of all these conferences, and they know the issues. They studied the issues. They're experts on these issues, and they're going to look to Washington, D.C., and they don't understand the issues as well as the conference commissioners or the leagues or the athletic directors and the players and the coaches, all these entities that have direct knowledge of the issues that are facing college athletics. But they're going to turn to Washington, D.C., and they've been talking for years, appearing on panels, convening in Washington, D.C. They've brought in coaches, athletic directors to speak on the issues, but they haven't been able to come up with anything for years now. And it just perplexes me. It baffles me. I just don't understand why all these people who are experts in the field, and they can't get together with their lawyers and have something be proposed, be enacted, be part of their legislation and the rules and standards in college athletics. And yet they say, because it's the courts, they keep losing in the courts. I don't understand how you could be paying lawyers all this money and you can't come up with rules and ways to solve the issues of college athletics. You have to turn to Congress. I just don't follow the logic. It makes no sense to me, but here we are with this presidential commission, and it's going to happen. And like I said, I don't know what their authority would be. If it's going to be guidelines, it's going to be strong recommendations. But when you have a commission with people in power on that commission, and you have these conference commissioners, you have athletic directors, they don't relinquish power very easily. People, I kept saying this many times on this show, people discuss a czar in college football. Unless that czar has a magic wand, like the Wizard of Oz, I don't think you're going to see those conference commissioners giving up the power to one person. And I mean, it just doesn't happen. You saw how the SEC and the Big Ten, they've taken command of the college football playoffs moving forward in 2026. How they convinced them to make that move, the other conferences, I don't know. They might have threatened them and say, we're going to start our own little couple of leagues over here and take all the teams. But I always think that I would have called their bluff, because all these senators and people in Congress from these other states would have band together and say, wait a minute now, we don't bother you. We don't bother you with college athletics, but when you're going to try to abscond with all these programs and leave states out, and states and schools and universities out of this equation, that you've taken it too far. But this is where we are now in college football, college athletics specifically, where they have to have a presidential commission. I have to see it to believe it, to see if something's going to come out of this, when they've been discussing this for years. Ever since Stephen Bradford, the state senator from Los Angeles, came up with the legislation to have an NIL in California. And that was, I don't know, must be 4 or 5 years ago now. And we still haven't resolved this issue. And they're speaking about guidelines. And another thing that it kind of bothers me is the fact that you want to curtail or cap the money that can be made by athletes. They fought all these years, decades, to be in this position, but you want to cap the money they can make. Now, that's a big equation in college athletics, the athletes, that you can offer NIL money, and it changes your roster, of course. But the other big variable in the equation is coaching. I don't hear anybody say we want to cap the coaches, because let's face it, not every school can hire a football coach for $10 million. But there are coaches out there making 10, 11, 12, $13 million. And that's the biggest variable in college football, I think, is the head coach. We've seen it. We've seen it where schools have money to burn, where they're in the top 10 in endowments in the United States, but they can't have successful football programs. They have the money and the resources, but no matter how much money they have, they don't hire the right people. But I'm just saying, if you're going to cap the student athletes, I'm for capping the coaches as well. Why not? Why not cap the coaches? You're trying to make the you heard reports of coaches complaining about making the field level, having some parity, because somebody has more NIL money to distribute to their student athletes. Well, how about capping the coaches' salaries and see if we can also control that variable and cap that variable. So anyway, we want to thank our guests. We want to thank our sponsors, Greer's Markets and 29 locations, Alabama, Florida, Mississippi. We also want to thank Cortland Grand Hotel, downtown Atlanta. And we want to thank our guest, Zach Barnett from Football Scoop, national writer. We really enjoyed the discussion this week, and we'll be back next week with another edition of AP As We See It. Thank you very much.